No, it's...
Oh, hello. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Please come in. There's lots of seats on this side as well. So come on in, grab a seat. We'll be chatting for about a half an hour, so you'll probably be a little bit more comfortable sitting down. Grab a beverage. There's seats back here, and there actually is line of sight, so it's not like, somewhere else. You can actually see everything. Amazing. Great. Are we good? We're good? All right. Hi. My name is Dora Chomiak. Thank you for joining us today. I'm the CEO of an organization called Razom for Ukraine. And we're here in partnership with an organization coming out of Stanford, California, called Nova Ukraine. And together, our two organizations were founded at roughly the same time in the United States. Razom is kind of based on the East Coast in New York, Nova, Stanford, West Coast. But together, since the full-scale invasion, our two organizations have distributed over $280 million US from thousands and thousands of donors to support Ukraine since Russia's full-scale invasion almost 3 years ago. So I hope that gives you the sense that Nova Ukraine and the Razom have had a long partnership, and we get things done. Both of us are very deeply focused on responding to the humanitarian disaster in Ukraine and making sure that Ukrainians get the support they need. So how are we here among the mountains of Davos? And what are we here to do? Well, we're here for a very specific reason. We believe it's important to make some noise, take up airtime, spotlight Ukraine's incredible resilience, and of utmost importance today, Ukraine's innovation. Because not only are Ukrainians withstanding the horrors of the full-scale invasion, they're simultaneously building and creating. They're creating new companies, launching really cool, groundbreaking, innovative projects, developing new infrastructure, and all this is happening under pretty hot, serious missile fire. And I think that's something that those of us who are not physically located in Ukraine lose sight of sometimes. So all of this work that Ukrainians are doing creating isn't just helping Ukraine survive. These organizations and companies are addressing some of the biggest challenges that are the themes of the Davos meetings today, things that touch on economic growth, security, and the future of our interconnected world. So I'm really excited that we get to kick it off, kind of a pre-show before WEF really kicks off, and it's appropriate that we do it with 3 accomplished Ukrainians on stage. And it's appropriate that we do it here at the Davos Lodge. So what we're going to do today is I have the privilege of having a conversation with these 3 folks that I'll introduce briefly right now. You all get to listen in on it and then ask some of your own questions. Afterwards, we'll have a chance to mingle, and you'll be able to have some snacks and ask additional follow-up questions. So today, we'll be speaking with Yaroslav Azhnyuk, who's an accomplished startup leader. He's guided several companies, and putting my MBA hat here, the cool thing about the companies he's led is they've been profitable. Not just pre-customer or pre-revenue, but actually profitable. And we met Yaroslav back in 2015. I had to dig up the archives when he spoke at a Razom IT ecosystem event in New York City, which is pretty cool. Nick Bilogorskiy, I alluded to earlier. Nick is now a venture capital investor, and he is one of the founders of the charity that's focused on Ukraine, Nova Ukraine, that we're partnering with here. And Nick, you and I go from like Maidan days, like before Nova was officially legally Nova, right? And morphed into it. And really Nova came together with Russia's invasion of Crimea, right? And it's been working since then. And Mariam is a researcher, cultural anthropologist, and author. And she and I met last year at Harvard University. I gave the keynote at a conference there, and she spoke to students and faculty who are working on decolonization. And so having the opportunity to listen to what these three people have in their brains and hearts is a real privilege for me. So I'm just going to dive right in. You can Google them, find out all the stats, but super cool people born in Ukraine, making things happen. That's the TLDR. So Yaroslav, I want to start with you. Last month, The Economist, the magazine, wrote a piece about how Ukraine uses cheap AI-guided drones to really wreak havoc on the invading forces. And the piece features your startup, your current startup, called The Fourth Law, which, as I understand it, and I'm not a technology person, but as I understand it, develops autonomy systems for drones at a much lower cost compared to the global players that are out there on the market now. And virtually every country that has a military is observing very keenly and learning what is happening in Ukraine, what is happening with the innovation of drones. And in the piece, you talk about how foreign investment in Ukraine's drone sector is far lower than other sectors. So help us understand. Where's the disconnect? Like, why the disconnect? And how do you see Ukraine's disruption of this technology evolving?
Sure. Thank you, Dora. So I'm going to address those three things: the investment, the FPV drones, and the autonomy. It is true that, as of last October, the whole foreign investment in Ukrainian drone innovation was below $25 million, which is a ridiculous amount. It's laughable, and it's really less than I was able to raise into my previous company, PetCube, which was doing pet cameras to entertain cats with lasers. So what does it tell us about the global private capital markets? That they are so afraid to invest in defense that they found more money to fund a pet toy than they found to help Ukraine do single-handedly do NATO's job instead of NATO, right? I think that's ridiculous. And to fight that, we are working on something we call the Defense Valley, sort of like Silicon Valley, but for defense. We're building this in Ukraine. It's going to be like a free economic zone, supported by many leaders in the government and many private initiatives. And that ecosystem is something that I hope will become one of the keystones of the Ukrainian strategy for the decades to come. Ukraine is the eastern frontier of the Western civilization, and we have to build the defensive capabilities for Europe there. It is already the biggest sort of testing ground in the world. So that is what is going on now. It has not been that much integrated into the global ecosystem. We're working to make sure that billions of dollars of capital flow into the defense technology in Ukraine, and the best specialists from all over the world, especially from Europe, come to Ukraine to build. And we already have a lot of ecosystem for that. The second part is that FPV drones, I think, are hugely underappreciated as a new...
Hang on, FPV, break it down.
Yeah, FPV is a first-person view. So these inexpensive drones, which cost like $1,500, they can fly up to 20 kilometers. They can carry up to 4 kilograms of payload. And there were 2 million of those produced by Ukraine alone last year. Just for comparison, the United States produced about 600,000 artillery shells last year. But Ukraine, with its tiny, tiny economy, produced 2 million drones. In fact, I have one of these drones with me, and it is equipped with autonomy. I can show it to you. It doesn't have anything that explodes. Yet. This is the drone. That's how it looks like. This is the thing that can take out a main battle tank. These are the kind of things that were used, over 2 million of them were used last year. This is the battery, and Nick, if you can help me, can you hold this? Yeah. This is sort of what the munition looks like, right? So you can attach it on the bottom here.
With Velcro?
What's that?
Okay.
Yeah, it has something called a Picatinny, whatever. So, these drones, they are a huge game changer. And very little people realize that, because What they're used for, they're used against infantry and armor. They're used to intercept aerial targets. They're like iPhones of this war. They're so ubiquitous. They're so like generalized uses. So I think this is hugely underappreciated, and this is the future of warfare. But what is even more important is that these drones are getting autonomous. So that's what my company does. We build systems which make these drones autonomous. And full autonomy is coming as soon as this year. These systems are already deployed. Actually have a small, different small surprise for you. That's one of such systems.
That's the whole system sits in there.
Yeah, the cost of materials here is about $30. The cost of this drone is about $500 with the munition, right?
With the munition.
Yes. So you can have a thing. Now we're like halfway there. We do some of the last mile autonomy. We do some parts of the autonomy, but not full autonomy. Later this year, and in fact, a month ago, I had a chance to present all of this to President Zelensky and Chancellor Scholz. And Scholz asked me, well, when is the full autonomy coming? So I really wanted to ask him when will he transfer Taurus missiles to Ukraine. I didn't, but I told him the full autonomy is coming this year, and I'm pretty sure about that. So once the full autonomy is there, that increases the capabilities of millions of these drones by a factor of 10,000, because anyone can be a pilot. They're 10 times more precise. They're multiple use, sort of like Falcon 9. So this is a huge game changer, and I think that what we should be thinking in this room, that in the West, we should be ready that these kind of weapons, our enemies will have them. And if Ukraine was able to make 2 million of these things, imagine China showing up with 2 billion of these things, which are fully autonomous, which are carried within fully autonomous underwater drones and show up on the coast of California. And this kind of future, or this kind of possible future, is coming much faster than you might think of. All of this is sort of all off-the-shelf technology. So that's what's going on, and I'm just happy to share these perspectives.
So now that you freaked us all out, this is a great setup because you're talking about how fast the innovation is coming.
The good news is that Ukraine is the good guys.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Ukraine is the part of the Western world.
And this is what I want to ask you, Nick. So you, I understand, invested in that cat toy laser company that Yaroslav mentioned.
One of our first investors. Thank you so much, sir.
I just want to make sure that you're recognizing you've got the merch. See, that's called an investor, and that did pretty well, right? And you've been in Silicon Valley for watching it from, and I want to get your perspective from Silicon Valley as someone both as an investor in innovative and technology and as a founder of a charity focused on Ukraine. Talk to us about how the last decade looks and what's coming next based off what Yaroslav just said.
Thank you, Dora. Well, look, the last 10 years, Ukraine, let's jump back. 10 years ago, Ukraine was primarily known as an outsourcing nation with minimal startup activity and no startup unicorns. But the total amount of money invested in a given year into all Ukraine startups was about $40 million, which is hard to imagine now. If you jump to 2021, that grew 20 times and became $800 million. And now we have 12 unicorn startups and a lot more to come soon, including global powerhouses like GitLab and Grammarly. And Grammarly, by the way, is used by 70,000 enterprise customers and 30 million people worldwide as a trusted AI writer. So it's inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs. And the two things that shaped Ukraine's journey over the last 10 years are entrepreneurship spirit and AI. On the entrepreneurship spirit, I do want to say that I believe that that Ukraine can replicate Israel's journey and become a startup nation. I have deep belief in that. Look at Israel. They have more than 9,000 active startups. But Ukraine already has more than 2,000 and at a fraction of the invested capital. So Ukrainians have proven themselves to be very efficient. And Ukraine is emerging as a leader in AI. As Yaroslav mentioned, we do have an upper hand and a secret weapon that is powering AI in Ukraine for defense, right? We have amazing access to battlefield videos and training data for drones. Nowhere in the world you have as much intelligence as Ukrainian drone manufacturers can get. But even outside defense, Ukrainian AI is leading and winning awards globally in finance, in health, in very many industries. And I do want to make a couple of companies known to you. There was recently, a week ago, a CES, Consumer Electronics Show. So what company won the 2025 Innovation Award in Artificial Intelligence? It was a Ukrainian company. What company is powering the AI voice cloning that is used by Golden Globe winning and Cannes film winning Emilia Paris, and hopefully Oscar winning as well? That's a Ukrainian respeecher, right? So we have a ton of talented, even in the audience, I see some founders of startups that are really amazing. And if you talk to them after the panel, you'll find out more about them. So Ukraine, and one other thing I want to say is we are here in Davos, right? World Economic Forum just published the Future of Jobs report. What are the top 2 fastest growing jobs in the world? Is the big data specialists and machine learning engineers. Where is the world going to find these people? Ukraine has them. Ukraine has more tech specialists than almost any other countries. We have 360,000 and we have over 200 universities. So a lot of people are graduating every year. In fact, by 2028, within 3 years, we will pass Israel as the largest tech workforce. So Ukraine is becoming an AI powerhouse, and I'm really excited about it.
I'm glad we're here talking about that. And to put it into context, I want to give Mariam a chance, as someone who is a sharp observer of Ukraine. I want to pose something to you that recently, so Ukraine is moving fast. We hear that from Yaroslav, we hear that from Nick. And recently a fellow American I spoke to compared the United States, this was a scary part, compared the United States to Russia. And said, hey, Americans learn and adapt, but you Americans are slow. You're not as nimble. You're too bureaucratic, kind of just like the Russians. So, Mariam, I'm curious to hear your reaction to that comparison. Is it legit? Do you agree with it? And tell us what makes Ukrainians so unique and different from their neighbor over there.
So I would like to address the first part about comparison Russia and US. So I think we need to admit that when we talk about warfare, Russia is fast. And this is one of the problems of democratic nation in Europe, for example, because we actually don't admit how fast you could be when you have a dictatorship. You don't need any forum, you don't need any public debate to fund your military system. So this is a thing, this is a problem not of the cultural difference, rather political systems. So with the democracies, we are valuing different viewpoints, we're trying to balance power, but with the authoritarian regime, you don't need that. You can act very fast, because there is only one person who decides everything. And if one person said that, as Yaroslav said, we need 2 billion drones tomorrow, they will be there. There will be no bureaucracy behind this process trying to explain, oh, maybe this is part, maybe this part, there's people working. Nobody cares because there is a problem of that I think people don't understand how fast you can be when you don't have a human rights. This is actually addressing another problem. Firstly, Ukraine is fast and yes, democratic country in the same time, but it's not a choice, it's a necessity. It's not like, because to be slow, it's a privilege. This privilege that we have here in Europe or in any other democratic countries, this privilege is based on the Ukrainians giving their lives on the front line every day, because this is something that saves this time. To be slow and be bureaucratic is a privilege. And I hope to have this privilege one day in Ukraine. Again, I will be very happy to not be so fast, because in our case, this is a survival mode, not a political choice of the government. So I think that in future, it will be one of the most important questions. Democracy must evolve, because either you will strike fast, or you will see how freedom fades. So you're
basically saying Ukraine is a model of democracy that can be fast.
Yes, this is example, because this is an example I think that Western democracies need to look for, because this is how we actually, we have still bureaucracy. We still know that we could be faster. This is a thing that a lot of people in military are talking all the time, that we need to be faster. Like we still, we can't discuss how everyone shock how we are innovative, but in the same time we're so self-critical. We still think that we need to be faster. We don't have time for this. So yes, and I think it's a very good example of how you can actually act fast, make a priorities, but in the same time understand that this precious time is not just a time. It's not a time that you save to have a coffee. It's a human's life. It's basically ticking bomb of someone's life. So.
Yeah, I very much agree. Just an example, like in Ukraine, you can finish assembling a drone by 9 p.m., go to a post office, send it to the sort of war zone city. The military will receive it the next day and will use it the same day. You don't need any permission to do that as a drone developer. So that's why it's a good reason for other companies to come and innovate. But that's your example of fast. Try doing the same thing in Brussels.
Yeah, but it's also kind of a good example because our past companies, they understand why we need to have it fast. It's not just a convenient idea, like it's not just a coffee in a coffee shop. It's something that you know exactly that if you're not doing it right now, somebody will die tomorrow. But if we talk about specifically, talking about second part of the question, what makes us different? This is a question for like PhD thesis or maybe 100 of...
But in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it. It's very easy. So I think the easiest way is try to explain the very small but very important word, Ukrainian word vola. While the direct translation is freedom, but it could not comprehend whole idea of the vola. So the idea of vola is a very unique fusion of determination, willpower, and freedom. And typically, when we talk about freedom in Western philosophy, sorry for doing philosophy here, but I cannot do anything else. So the idea that with the freedom and with the Western philosophy, it's very connected to your rational mind, but vola is heart-centered. It's cardiocentric idea. And this is a core for Ukrainian identity. All Ukrainians here know exactly what vola means. This is not acts that you do because you think. You do this because you feel. And this is the reason why we fight. This is the reason why we do revolution. This is the reason why we don't give up. Because we have vola.
I'm telling you, so it's the brain and the heart, and that's the superpower of Ukrainians.
It's more even hard than the brain, because actually if you take a look on the, for example, revolution of dignity, from the financial perspective, typically people do revolution when they're losing something. It's very rare when people have actually some stability and they give it away, because everyone knows that revolution is a financial, not very stable situation. But in Ukrainian case, we were doing revolution not because of the political party. It was just a value. And it's very cardiocentric idea. Again, this idea of cardiocentric Ukrainian identity, it's actually from Skovoroda is coming. Like it's very, very long time there.
Fellow Kharkivian and
yeah, so, and I think this is the easiest explanation why we are so resourceful, because it's not coming from the brain, it's something that we have from here.
That's fascinating. And I think vola is a great concise answer to that. And so building off that, Yaroslav, one of your engineers was quoted by The Economist. I think his name was Dennis. He said, "I used to be a pacifist, but Russia's war has stripped me of that privilege." Where do you shake out on the pacifist, not pacifist? And what does it mean to embrace pacifism as a privilege in a fast-paced, innovative environment?
Yeah, well, I don't think that what I'm gonna say is gonna calm you guys down in this audience, but I'm not saying this to calm anyone down. I'm sort of, the way we're gathered here is not to hear pleasant things, is to maybe better understand the future and then be able to do something to make the future better. Are there any people here who ever played the Civilization, Sid Meier's Civilization game? Please raise your hands. Okay, a joke for a few of you. Mahatma Gandhi is known for his pacifism, and but in Civ, he's putting those nukes to a good use. So you can be pacifist when you have nukes, okay? And Ukraine lost its nukes in 1994. The notorious Budapest Memorandum, which is a big problem for all of us now, because what we saw in 2022 is that basically nuclear non-proliferation doesn't work anymore. And as a result of 2022, over the next 2 decades, we will see the world nuclearizing. And in my opinion, if you're a country leader and if you're not working on getting nukes now, you are doing a disservice to your citizens, and maybe you should be prosecuted for that. So I'm serious about that. Like, think about all the countries who want to get and can get nukes. There are many of those, like Brazil, Iran, of course, maybe Saudis, maybe Indonesia, Japan, maybe Poland, maybe Sweden. So those could be NATO countries. Who knows where the NATO goes in the next 20 years. So as a result of that, and the longer we're not able to provide Ukraine victory and security and so on, and I think we're past that stop already, the more dangerous world becomes in terms of nukes. And that's one thing that I think is a big factor for the future that we should all be preparing for. And on one conference a few months ago, was asked about the, which business model is, back to what you, Nick, were talking about, is better for the future. Is it outsourcing or a product? And I said the security business model. If you're in business, whatever provides more security to the societies over the next decades, I think that the stocks of that are going to go up. So that's one thing that I'm worried about in terms of the future. And another thing is, until recently, I thought that this is the most important weapon of at least of the decade. Individual autonomy for these small mass-produced robots. But the last half a year, I'm thinking there is one weapon that is even more dangerous, and that is social media. And using social media to influence societies, countries, that's a weapon of mass destruction. That is a weapon that is capable of destroying countries. And if you read the interview of President Macron by The Economist last summer, he named 3 mortal dangers. It was titled Europe in the Mortal Danger. He named 3 mortal dangers: Russia, dependence on natural resources, and social media, in a way that I just mentioned that.
Right, because when social media disrupts this, actual humans communicating with humans, that's how you can destroy a society.
Yeah, that's how you ruin alliances, that's how you polarize societies, and that's what has been happening. This war has been waged on the West for the last 10, maybe 20 years, and the West has not been responding. So I guess my point here is we need to open our eyes, we need to start looking up, be actually conscious of those dangers, and start building and investing in these things that protect us. Because now I feel like the whole Western society is exactly in the same state as Ukraine was pre-full-scale invasion. We saw this coming, but we didn't want to believe. We tried to sort of calm ourselves down and not to believe, the worst case scenario. And my call for all of you, do not repeat our mistake. Start making those decisions, investments, and so on now. And in doing that, I think Ukraine is the West's best partner. This is the wall from the Game of Thrones, and you got to be listening to what those folks are telling you. Thank you.
That's awesome call to action, Nick. What would you say from Stanford, Silicon Valley? What do you see Ukraine and people based in Ukraine doing to understand this danger and sort of function as this wall from Game of Thrones?
Well, I live in San Jose, and Nova Ukraine is based in Stanford. And what we know in Silicon Valley is that innovation starts with daring to think different. And Ukrainians certainly think different. I see Ukrainians not just surviving. I see Ukrainians disrupting the world today, solving global challenges in cybersecurity, in AI. And to illustrate that, I want to ask the audience, you guys all heard of ChatGPT. Who can tell me what T stands for?
Transformer. Sorry.
No fair advantage.
So the story is there was this really important paper in Google in 2017 with 8 authors, and it was called Attention is All You Need. And these 8 folks invented the transformer architecture, which was a new way for machines to comprehend, interpret documents, and really powered everything that's happened in generative technology, AI, since then. So foundation of Gemini and other open AI technologies, Transformer, and one of these inventors of Transformer is Ilya Polosukhin, an engineer from Kharkiv.
But of course.
What it brings me down to is what powers this progress in Ukraine, what powers the innovation is tech education. Super important. I'm myself a product of a math school from Kharkiv. And it made things really easy when I immigrated to Canada, and I could skip 1 grade and go straight to university. When we started Nova Ukraine in 2014, we realized that flourishing nation has to be based on education. We made it part of our mission. So Nova Ukraine is doing a lot in this area. We support STEM education in Ukraine. We buy devices for classrooms. We partner with Ukraine Global Scholars, and it remains a really important part of how we can help Ukraine not just win, but prosper in the future. And I'm no doubt certain that Ukraine will win and prosper. And I'd like to also invite everyone to join us, right? Ukraine victory is good for the world.
And it's a great business opportunity.
When Ukraine thrives, the world will be happier. And there is room on this journey for everyone. If you're an investor, you can invest in Ukraine. If you're humanitarian, your donation will mean the world to Ukrainians. And I'm just happy to have the opportunity to tell you this today.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you for both of you guys have calls to action. Mariam, close us out. Any additional insights you wanted to share about how does a country facing the largest ground invasion in Europe since World War II, with basically a demilitarized country since 91, accelerated 94, as Yaroslav say, like, how does it develop and go forward? Like, what's the action?
So what is different on this war? And of course, there is a lot of, unfortunately, we need to say that in cultural studies, we know that war actually changed a lot of in society, in the progress, in technology, and also in the medicine. So it's something that can change the shape of society and exactly the attitude and actual mental state of the society. So right now, what we have in Ukraine is that we can actually see what exactly frontline look like. So it's not just something that we see on the news page. We know exactly from the messenger of our like member of family, from our friends, we have a footage, exactly what's happening, like exactly like a stalker, but in real life. And a lot of people are also like producing this kind of information. So when people are living their relatively normal life, because I cannot call it normal life, they still know exactly what kind of price someone is paying this very minute. So it's actually very interesting, because for me, one of the, when you try to understand how ethic works, how ethic with war works, you start to see that people start to feel a lot of guilt. Because you know exactly that someone else there on the front line basically not living the best life, and you're trying to imitate normal life. So, and I was kind of shocked and amazed how Ukrainians deal with that very complicated part of the mentor struggle. We have the thing, it's called everyday donation. So basically you build a small help to the armed force every day. Of course, a lot of people are trying to use their own more creative way. For example, I cut my hair 6 months ago, and I raised money for the armed forces. It was not a lot, but of course I wanted to have more. But yeah, for me it was a big thing, and I was inspired by another Ukrainian comedian, Vasily Bardak. He also cut his hair, and he was one of the most creative people who is doing that. He's doing a lot of interesting video, try to make donation and raising money not just something that you obliged to do, but a fun way to also cooperate each other and do something. And for me, this is a thing, like, the endless creativity and dedication to help armed forces, even in such a complicated time. This is something this is a good example why I love my people, because the idea, like how we are so resourceful, that keeps amazing me, to be honest.
That is great. I love all those examples because that creativity and that imagination, that ability to think different is what I would encourage each of you to do this week. So just to kind of close us out so we can have chatting time one-on-one, there are a lot of people up and down the promenade who are new to Ukraine. And perhaps some people in this room. And so if each of us, my call to action would be curious about Ukraine, hire firms from Ukraine, hire people from Ukraine, and be visible about it. Make some noise. Let people know that you're interested, that you know this part of the world, and you see how voila manifests itself. I think we've been able to experience it on this stage. So if you could join me in thanking our panelists, and please stay for a continued conversation. Was working? Okay, hey, so in the spirit of innovation and creativity, turns out we can do Q&A, so let's roll with it. Who's got questions? Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Natalia, and my question, let's go back to the product. And I was curious whether you foresee a dual use for the drone. And now we know that we need to use it for the front line. In the meantime, for investors, can you explain what is the best market fit? Because also we know that drones can be used in different areas. Thank you.
The market is infinite because this is something that protects our lives. So the cost for one life is infinite, if you ask me. The cost for the future of the Western civilization is infinite to an infinite degree. I'm not sure, is this thing working? Okay, cool. Look, I think we have this phrase. It is called dual-use washing. Dual-use washing is what entrepreneurs do when they struggle to raise capital for something they need to protect the future of the world and make an actual military device that is capable of killing the bad guys who came to kill you. And they start inventing different dual uses. I can do dual use washing for this. This thing can deliver pizza. It can. Maybe it will be. I hope so. Our company, the way we think about it is that it's a mass-produced autonomous robotics company. Autonomous robotics is going to change like a dozen multi-trillion-dollar industries in the next decade. Transportation, agriculture, construction, manufacturing, surgery, city services like haircuts, all of that will be changed by autonomous robotics. Now is the first time in the history of humanity and history of technology when that is possible. But it's crucial for us to focus on what is the top priority, and top priority is staying alive. Staying alive? Staying alive?
Thank you. Yes, question back here.
I think this was a good question. I still agree that here we need to follow this unique possibility to fight and survive. But the dual use is actually quite interesting because it can be used, for instance, for firefighting. It can be used for search and rescue, right? So there is a lot of public usage besides the war, no matter that I don't want to wash it away.
Yeah.
And that's much easier to cross the border if you are dual use, because if you
Exactly.
that's another part of documentation.
And I want to give also. So,
This thing is a hobby. I had no issues at all carrying it through the airport. The challenge is this: if this has explosives, that's when this device becomes a dual use or single use, right? As long as this doesn't have any explosives, you can buy drones like this, you can assemble them, you can buy all the components in any European or American country.
What about this piece?
You can also buy all of this off the shelf, and if you're smart enough, you can write the software that makes it work autonomously. That's what we did.
amazing. And also, if I may, I'll give some back thoughts, right? So because now every second Ukrainian is creating drones actually at home. And then when we hope the war will end, hope sooner, right, than later. And then we have this market which is filled with drones, right? And then thinking about sustainability of the use, how we can use, how can we adapt, can we sell, to whom can we sell? That I think that's a great question that you as, for example, the creator might think, and maybe you can lead the investors explaining that, okay, that's not only for the front line, but that's sustainable and that invest and there's a future.
Sure.
Thanks for that. I understand there's a question right here.
Hi, my name is Dustin. I run an organization called Sunflower Network. We've met in the past. Good to see you. Very good to see you. We're using prefabricated modular technology to build hospitals in Ukraine. Nick, I have a question for you as an investor. You talked about the structural tailwinds behind Ukraine's development as a technological innovation nation. How, as an investor, do you reconcile that with some of the demographic headwinds that Ukraine was facing a little bit before the war, but that are exacerbated by the military situation?
There's a very real shortage of people in Ukraine, especially among men. Many are fighting, and the industry definitely feels that. That said, Ukrainian startups are, I was told not to use this word, resilient. And I see no shortage of innovative ideas, both from men remaining in Ukraine, from women in Ukraine, and from millions of Ukrainians who are right now in Europe or US temporarily. So as an investor, I'm still bullish on the market.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hi. On the beginning of the conversation, you raised the topic about the freedom and democracy versus the Putin-style management in his country. And another point that Yaroslav mentioned it about the future of the something that Ukraine lost with the Budapest Memorandum. So he also took the idea some country maybe potentially in the future will be developed something like that what we lost.
The N-word.
Kind of, yeah. These two things, it's kind of controversial between each other. So imagine that in Ukraine, we have all past knowledge, development and other things to protect ourselves. So how we can address this topic to the potential investors or even to the public world? Or we just need to follow, from your opinion, like Israeli way, that we say we don't have nuclear weapon, but...
Okay. I think this is very important to explain it. I cannot talk about investors. Sorry. I'd never talk. I think only with you. It was first time. So I think the important part that we need to explain is that democracy, the way how it works right now, they are not working. They're not efficient enough. And it's something that also Yaroslav mentioned, like we want to, like not we, but like some people in the Western world, they want to believe that it's still possible to live the old way. And I think sometimes, with the movie Don't Look Up, I think all Ukrainians, when they talk publicly, they are just main characters from the Don't Look Up. We're just screaming all the time, you will die, you will do something. And the world is like, yeah, it's very interesting idea. So I think that we need to explain exactly that democracy, the way how we build it right now, doesn't work when we talk about war specifically. And while we don't have any other option right now, only nuclear weapon, this is something that makes us feel like Russia, for example, won't attack us again. And maybe there is something wrong, because the moment when they created the idea of nuclear weapon, the idea was that we don't want to have any great war again. And apparently, this is not working anymore. So we need to do something else. And this is completely natural. The most natural thing is to have change. So I think it's completely understandable and good point in time of the values, of the Western values as well, to understand that we need to change something in the system. To approach should be different.
And that ability to change and innovate is exactly what Ukrainians do every single day. And that is, I think, something worth being explicit about. And like all of your questions are very good. And the things that sort of the super secret sauce is this ability to change and adapt and to continue to create. And I think with that, we need to change where we're standing and wrap up this part of the program. And you're welcome. Thank you to the Davos Lodge and to our partners here with Monaco House, Nova Ukraine. Awesome to collaborate with you always. I just need to give a shout out to co-founder of Razom, Maria Sirocco, who just came in from the airport. Find Maria, find each of us. Please keep this conversation going. We'll have a bit of a reception here, but thank you for coming today and thank you for being loud about Ukraine. Thanks.
Slava Ukraini!